Hi, how are you?
Hello, how's it
Hi.
going?
Wonderful. Um, First things first, I'm gonna have to ask you to pronounce your name for me.
Oh yeah, of course. Do you want my whole obnoxious name or just the
All of
first?
it, yes, all the words.
It's Jose Avelino Gilles Corbett Lourenco. My dad is Jose Julio Pereira Lourenco. His father was Jose George. Like it's like a whole, 10 Jose Lourencos in a row. It's the most common name in Portugal and in Brazil. And there are other Jose Lourenco writers out there. So it's not just an affectation. There's some practicality to having all five there. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned there's other writers. I saw that you adapted this screenplay from Goethe's novel. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's you know what, the I feel like the secret to adapting anything is to find a short novel. Like there's so many, like I grew up wanting to be a novelist. I grew up like thinking like loving books so much. And over the years whenever I'd try to like adapt a book that I loved, I'd be like, "Oh God, there's a reason why books are adapted into miniseries, more than single films." And yeah, Werther is a novelette. It's tight. It's like 180 pages. It's a achievable narrative in a film length. But yeah, it was a book I read in university and a book I read 10 years after that, and then it just kind of resonated with me in a way that it hadn't before. And I was like, why has this not been made into a major English language feature? And yeah, I don't know, the characters and the themes, and it just still seemed relevant to a contemporary audience. And it's like, I'm gonna take a swing at this, and did.
Yeah. Well, I was
Yeah.
really impressed with, with the updates, with, the ability to, modernize it to the point, everyone has cell phones, we could reach each other at any time. It makes that lost love seem a little closer. What was your idea in contemporizing this piece?
Yeah, it was I think the thing that made it uh like the thing that made it less challenging, I think, than it might have been was I wasn't trying to do as much of a like beat for beat recreation of the novel. Um, it was more uh, keeping the narrative spine more or less intact, and then bringing the characters to life in a modern setting, and yeah, just really like leaning into the characters and character motivations, and then just giving them a setting that they can explore and sounds so vague. How should I try to like phrase this in a better way? I don't know. I mean, there are like it's you know what it is? It's just a process of constant iteration while you're writing. You look at a scene and you're like, okay, I know that in this moment, it's Werther and Charlotte connecting, and in the original novel, maybe it's them connecting over a poem that they both love and feel impassioned by. And then in the movie, it's like, well, what would the modern version of that be? It would be a J.D. Salinger book that
Mm.
explores similar themes to the film. So there was some of those direct updates, and then there were things like, in the novel is, and my grade 11 English teacher will be very impressed that I remember this word. The novel is written in the epistolary form. It's a novel told in letters, and in the book, it's Werther writing to his friend Wilhelm. And I remember in an early draft, I was like, oh, maybe I'll have him making phone calls or leaving voice messages. And then I was like, no, let's create the character of Paul. Paul will be Wilhelm, and Werther can just directly speak to him on screen. And all those emotions and all that anxiety that he pours out in the letters that comprise the novel, we can just have those be two best friends who are, one of them just receiving all of Werther's heartbreak and madness, and the other just, yeah, continuing with the deluge.
hmm
Yeah.
Paul was a great character, and I thought it was really interesting that he had a moment to shine in the film when he had a little bit of a budding romance with Sissy. Is that from the book or is that a creation?
It was a creation. It was to give the Paul character, because Paul is he I feel like he could have very easily stayed a device more or less, like for Werther to have an exchange with a real person. And so yeah, just to give him uh yeah, a little more depth, a little more of a grounding as a human being. to have him sort of like grow a little bit and then have the that budding romance be something that can cause tip him over the edge. Like he's been stamped all over by Werther over and over and over again. And then finally, when Paul thinks like, oh, there's this thing for me, there's this love that I can explore. It's like Werther gets in the way of that too, and it's the thing that tips Paul over the edge and just contributes to the overall story. It's he's going to stand up for himself finally with Werther, um, and yeah, and grow and have their relationship change a bit as well.
Um, Watching this film, I found it evocative of a lot of other hopeless romantic films that I've seen before, like Igby Goes Down or Rushmore. And I think Salinger also was a very obvious choice to help match the tone. What are some things that inspired you when you were putting this to page and then film?
Yeah, I mean, Igby Goes Down and Rushmore are both wonderful film. It's funny, I hadn't thought about Igby Goes Down in such a long time. That's Kieran Culkin, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like yeah, wow, crazy. That guy, Succession, so good. Um, yeah, and Rushmore, I mean, it's when Rushmore is uh like such a big film for me. Like such a like it was I grew up out west in Canada and I didn't really know anything about film. Like I watched movies all the time, like just all the time with my dad's Portuguese, he immigrated to Canada when he was 15. And so film was a big thing for him, like learning English. And we would rent movies constantly. And he always wanted to go to the 99-cent video store. I'm like, let's go to Blockbuster. Let's get like the new release. And he'd be like, no, the 99-cent video store for $7, we can get 7 movies. And I'm like, but they're insane foreign movies that are like that we're not gonna like. But we would spend all weekend like watching them. So I was exposed to things, but I just had no conception of film as something made by a person. It just wasn't part of my life or part of my experience. Anyway, long-winded way of saying I was going to university in Montreal and there was a little rep theater near school called Cinema du Parc. And uh, like this film head friend of mine had dragged me to theater to see something. And I have such a clear memory of seeing the trailer for Rushmore and being like, whoa, what is this? I gotta see this. And saw it at Cinema du Parc. And it was one of the first times that I was like, wow, it's a thing with authorial voice that is like amazing. So, sorry, the super long-winded answer to what I was thinking about was making Werther. Rushmore definitely. With Nail and I is a big movie for me. As are films like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and The Princess Bride, and like I love kind of like slightly askew Hollywood comedies, and I love um yeah, I don't know. I always feel so on the spot when I'm trying to like what were the things? But yeah, I don't know. I love David Sedaris's essays. I love the Far Side cartoons. I love The Legend of Zelda. I love like these are the things that are around me, I guess, that uh yeah, that are maybe leaking into the writing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we all have these
Yeah.
formative latchkey things that
Yeah.
inform us. For me, obviously Gary Larson, The Far Side,
Oh my
Calvin
God.
and Hobbes. The
Calvin and Hobbes. Oh, do you have the Calvin and Hobbes like collected the 3 volume thing?
I have all the individual ones that make
Oh,
up
okay,
all
yeah.
of that. Yeah, I bought all the
Yeah.
gotta have them.
Yeah.
So in fact, the house I'm living in when we were shopping for the house, the
Yeah.
people who had it prior had their bookshelf out and had Calvin and Hobbes. I'm like, all right, we can buy this house.
That's the one. Dude, every Christmas it was either a Far Side or a Calvin and Hobbes under the tree, and that was like that day was perfect.
Let's talk about some of the filmmaking techniques in this movie. A lot of montage, great use of color. I really liked the lapse of time when there was the rift between Lot and Werther, where he's calling and the days are getting written on and crossed out, and the lights are coming down. Tell me about working with your DP to create that.
Yeah, I mean, our cinematographer, Nick Haight, I just met him while interviewing DPs, and I was like, this is the guy. And like he's like my best friend now. Like we talk like all day, every day. Like I can't wait to make more things with Nick. He's just so smart and so talented. And like months before we even started prepping, he was like, it was after our like second coffee of just whatever. He's like, you want to come over tonight and just like watch movies? He was like, I got a projector. I was like, yes, I do. Let's do that every single night. And my wife was like, well, not every night. You have two children. I was like, yeah. Well, once the girls are in bed. And so I would like get the girls to sleep and I would head over to Nick's at like 9:30, 10, and we'd watch a movie like nearly every night for months. And it was amazing. Like we really like we we went through like whatever was on like whatever new was coming to Criterion that month. Like we'd watch that, but then we'd also go back and watch like I don't know, what do we look at? We watched like Heartburn and Licorice Pizza and trying to think of like other, I don't know, like it was just this like really wonderful time. And yeah, what was amazing about working with Nick on this is that we would like see shots and things and we'd be like, let's steal that shot. Like let's there's a scene of Werther and Charlotte where they're reading together in companionable silence on the grass on a thing, and that this really nice scene between them. And the establishing shot from that is just a straight lift from A Bigger Splash. There's like this shot on the beach. We're like, yeah, bigger splash shot. Let's do that. Like just framings and things that we love that we stole. We knew we wanted to shoot it anamorphic because like why not? You get the chance, got to do it. And it just felt like we're like, let's give some real like cinematic weight to this story that, at times can feel light and buoyant and let's ground it. Like let's give it like the impact of cinema, And so much of the film is shot in anamorphic, but then with Charlotte and Werther, and this was a Nick idea, he was like, why don't we shoot them on sphericals whenever they're together. So whenever they're having an intimate moment, they're shot on their own set of lenses that are just like a little warmer, that lift them a little more, make them a little more immediate in the frame. And then we cropped it for the edit. But like it just has that little something that like, I don't know that you like necessarily see, but I think there's so many things in the film that we tried to imbue it with to create a feeling. And I think that was one of the way that it was lit and the color journey that the production designer and the costumer took us on throughout the film. Like it's just all these things that we really, there's just, I'm so proud of the level of craft that Nick and Kiera and Courtney and the whole team brought to it.
Nice. Was it a no-brainer to shoot it in Toronto?
You know what? It was like I wrote the script 12 years ago and there were different iterations of it set up with different directors, different places over the years. But it made all the sense in the world. And it was a real opportunity. I feel like there are films that have been set in Toronto as Toronto in the past, but not a lot. Like most of the time, Toronto is playing New York or playing Detroit or Chicago or just a city. Like they just frame out everything. And they're like, it's a metropolis. But it felt amazing to be able to sort of like look like I didn't grow up in Toronto. I moved here in 2001, so I've been here just over 20 years. But they were real formative years for me. It was all my 20s and my 30s, and it was so gratifying to be able to just represent this city that I love in such a cinematically handsome way. Like just yeah, beautiful frames that are not like worried if there's like a glimpse of like the Gardner Expressway as fireworks are going off, or as they're walking as they're waiting for Sissy to come out of a job interview, if they're in front of Roy Thompson Hall or somewhere beautiful downtown. There's so many spaces in the city that are just so gorgeous to me and have not been exploited on film because things are always trying to pretend that they're not Toronto. So it just felt, exciting and fresh. And I hope to shoot many more films set here.
All right. I think I have time for one more.
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
me about working with Douglas and Allison, not only as actors, but also as producers.
Yeah, I mean, Doug and Allison, I've actually known Allison for quite a long time, from back in the day because she's from Toronto originally, and I've had watched her career expand and grow over the years, and she's just, yeah, such an incredibly talented actor, like, and dancer and singer and Tony Award winner Broadway, like she's just a force. And Doug is, I keep making this comparison. I don't know if he likes it or not, but I'm gonna keep doing it because I think it's true. I feel like he's like a Cary Grant type. Like he's like he can do like such like nuanced drama and just bring pathos and has such a great emotional intelligence. But he can also do comedy. He has a real like lightness to him, and he can turn a phrase, and his reactions are so good. And I think it's a really rare ability to be able to traverse those poles so gracefully and with such class. And like on set, like you couldn't ask for a better leading man. Like he really treated everybody so well, as did Allison. It was such a nice experience. Like it was such a positive filming experience. And so much of that credit goes to the two of them because they just whether it was, day players coming in, background, our crew, visitors to the set, they always took the time to make people feel good and recognized and celebrated. Like it was really, I feel so lucky to have been able to work with them.
Great. That's our time. Thank you so
Okay.
much, and best of
Thank
luck with it.
you. Appreciate it. Oh, thanks very much. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
You too. Take care.